Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to 216, a Link to the Past podcast. I'm your guest host, TracieM. League down to 4 teams in the Invitational. Don't forget to track us grabbing that last spot in a very close Game 3 finish, and we'll play to Infinity and Pagog. While on the other side of the bracket, Last Location Years will face off with Potato Pouch. Open League down to 8 teams vying for those automatic bids to next year's Invitational League. This round will decide that, which should make for some very entertaining races. This week, I talked to LackAttack. Now, Lack is sort of ALTTPR adjacent. He does have a sub-90 NMG time and has participated in a couple of tournaments. But what's more interesting is the sheer number of games Lack has speedrun, with several world records and experience at various GDQs, as well as his experience with the Big 20. So here it is, my conversation with LackAttack. All right, today we have LackAttack joining me. Lack, first of all, thank you for taking the time out to talk with me. I think this is going to be really fun.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I'm going to start with something recent. The Grand Poo World 3. I literally just went back and watched the finish. You want to talk about that for a second?
Sure. Grand Poo World 3 is a Super Mario World ROM hack created by Barbarous King, one of the biggest streamers, speedrunners, SMW players in kind of my circle. He's definitely the biggest that I watch. And so he released this after many years of anticipation. I think Grand Poo World 2 came out in 2018. So it's been 5 years since that one was released. And so just a little backstory. The game came out in 2018, but I had never played Kaizo Mario. And then I noticed people, I knew that this was a popular one because I saw Mitch run it at a GDQ event. And I said, you know what? I just kind of feel like I have the itch to play this hard Mario game that I had no idea actually how hard it was going to be. And so I played that. It was a really, really fun experience. And then I've been looking forward to 3. It's been kind of a meme at this point, kind of like Half-Life 3, but this one actually came true. So he released that on November 17th of 2023. And I played it first day, and I just finished it 2 days ago, and it was super fun. Super fun.
Yeah, I mean, we won't spoil the ending, but yeah, that ending was pretty darn cool. A lot of fun looking things. Now, I would never play these games because they just look incredibly hard, but there's a pretty dedicated group of people that play these games, and it's really impressive.
Oh yeah. I mean, the talent in the Kaizo Mario community is just ridiculous. There's people that have already speedrun it and beaten the game in an hour. It took me about 60 hours to complete the game, start to finish. And that includes a puzzle that is not necessarily platforming or Mario. It's just a kind of an escape room inside the game that's required to finish it. And that's all I'll say about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I encourage people that either to play it if you are good enough to play it, or want to put that kind of time in, or watch it, because definitely a fun experience for those of us watching too. But this is you do a lot of speedruns.
Yes,
I looked up. I've looked you up. I have it up here on speedrun.com, and it keeps sending me to ads because that's what speedrun.com does. And the number here, full game runs 665.
Yes.
Across some number of games. Mostly NES games, I think, right?
Yes.
That's NES as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do. I've done a lot of consoles, but primarily NES.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And of course, Legend of Zelda. Bunch of runs there. Everything I see here is listed as first, second, and 1 third place. So,
yeah, I know. I need to clean that up a little bit, right?
I mean, in your spare time, right, with all the
slack.
others. But it's like the NES games and the SNES games. I assume you grew up playing a lot of those games.
I did, yeah. The ones that I've speedrun the most, I played as a kid. Just to have a real appreciation for those games, and they kind of define me and my hobbies of these, like Zelda 1 especially. I mean, I remember playing that when I was just really, really young. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the first games that I speedran, and obviously the one that I've kind of stuck with the most over the years. but yeah, and then I've had other projects that kind of contribute to this. But yeah, I've done a lot of games. I've participated in events that, bring about a lot of speedruns. And I've created like goals lists for myself that include 10 different games. So I really tried to be that well-rounded speedrunner, because I get bored playing the same game. Like, I don't know how people just speedrun one game and grind it down to nothing. I mean, I've done that, but I would take breaks in the middle and like also put a lot of time into a different game, even different style game. So
yeah, I mean, some of the Zelda one speedruns, especially when you start getting into some second quest stuff, are pretty brutal too.
Yeah, I didn't really do much of second quest until probably like 4 years ago. I actually had never beaten second quest as a kid and beat it.
Oh, really?
On stream. Yeah, I beat it on stream for like the first time ever.
Oh, cool.
And so that was fun to be able to do. Sadly, those VODs are lost forever, but I did do that, and that was neat to kind of come full circle and share that experience in the modern day, I would say.
And when you were a kid, so you had the NES, and then did you get a SNES as a kid too, or did that come later?
Oh, it's actually a really great story. I wanted a Super Nintendo more than anything in my life when I was young, and this is in it was like 1992, I guess, when the SNES came out. 91 when the SNES
91,
came
92,
out.
somewhere around there. Yeah.
So like 92, asked for Christmas. I'm like, I want a Super Nintendo. Wrote to Santa, I want a Super Nintendo. Didn't get it. Next year, wrote to Santa, Super Nintendo. It's like all I want. And then the third year, I didn't get it in the third year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what's happening. So I pitched a fit, and for my birthday, we were in Toys R Us. I can picture it. I don't know how old I am, but it was in 1994. And I pitched a fit, and my grandmother was with me and my mom was with me, and my parents never bought me one. And I was like, Mom, I have the money. Just let me buy it. And my grandmother turned to her, rest in peace. She said, oh, just let him get it. It's his money. Let him do it. He's been bugging you for years. So I bought the Donkey Kong Country Super Set for Super Nintendo.
Oh, nice.
And it was like the greatest day of my life. So that is one of my like most vivid and treasured memories, is the day that I brought home the SNES.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me when I was a kid and we got our first NES around that same age. And the best Christmas gift I ever got was my Zelda 1 cartridge. Like the NES was for my brother, but the Zelda 1, that was mine. So.
That was yours. Very cool.
That was mine. Yep. So that's what a neat story. But still, it's interesting that, like the NES, I mean, that's kind of the thing that you do so much of, like, your speed runs and like the first time we met was at a GDQ. Like you were sitting there playing SMZ3, and I was sitting next to you, and we started chatting. And that was we'll talk about your own personal GDQ runs, but you were on the couch for the was it Andy and Ivan, I think, playing the co-op SMZ3. And the reason why I bring that up is there was a moment in there where I guess Andy had to go to the bathroom, and he hands you the controller.
He did. It was unprecedented.
And of course, in Super Metroid, everybody uses a different control scheme. So you end up in Super Metroid, and you're like, what am I doing? Yes, it looked like I had never played the game before. I was playing with my feet or something, because all the buttons are different. And I played, at that time, I played with like Super Mario World controls. So like Y was run, and A was jump, and B was shoot. I think I've since changed that. I actually don't even, I do YAB X select, I think is like the order that you do. So I don't even remember what that is, but like I'd use Y as dash. Now I use Y as shoot. I think I switched shoot and jump, or shoot and run when I started doing speed runs. But yeah, that was really funny, because I'm like, oh, this is my moment. It's like those dreams you have. Like I have these dreams of like, oh, I finally get my chance, and then like my legs don't work, like I can't run, or I'm like, in my underwear, or something goes wrong, and like that was like actually happening on the stage. I'm like, I can't move, and so I had to spend all this time like changing the controls just for Andy to come back in like 5 minutes. But I can say that I've played both Link to the Past and Super Metroid at a GDQ event
on
There
stage.
you go. There you go.
Even if it was for 5 minutes, I've done it.
Yeah, I mean, because you did. You played both games. So I want to say you were in Link to the Past when he handed you the controller, and then you went into Super Metroid, and that's when, of course, because the Link to the Past has one control scheme, and Super Metroid has the choice of control schemes, which is really interesting that more games don't do that. It was kind of a unique thing to Super Metroid. Like, not even the modern Metroid games don't even let you do that.
Yeah, I don't even remember many games. Like the only games that I remember were like Super Mario All-Stars, because you could like run with Y or jump with Y or run with B or something.
Right, because you're playing NES games on a SNES controller, so there's like
so you need fewer
buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, I'm trying to remember. I thought maybe you'd run some Z1 at GDQ.
I have. I had 3 separate runs there.
Okay. Well, tell us about those.
Sure. So AGDQ 15, that was my first exposure to GDQ event. It's the first time I'd ever met any speedrunner in person. I started streaming in 2013, and I'd kind of picked up Z1 in the early goings and had, met a lot of people online, but I'd never gone to an event, and I'd submitted Zelda 1, like First Quest, Noah Bay, to GDQ as a race with Darkwing Duck.
Right.
And he was the record holder, like at the time, but I had taken the record and we kind of traded it back and forth. So that was like my first ever GDQ run. Like Darkwing has been around for a very long time, like a lot of experience, great speedrunner, all different, kind of like me, like they're very different types of games that he speedruns, and he's good at a lot of them. And so we got that race. I was never like more nervous in my entire life, because I was in front of all these people who had huge resumes, and I was just pretty new to it. And so we did the race. It was actually a really good race. It came down to level 9, and we were like screen for screen. And it was really cool. I did end up winning. But it was a super fun experience. And like, I got a lot of props. So I got a lot of respect from people after that. So I felt like I kind of belonged after that run, which was really fun. After that, I played many games at GDQ, but Zelda 1, I played again, I think 2 years later. I'm fuzzy on the timeline, but a couple years later, I was like, yep, I'm retiring from Zelda 1. Let me do my farewell tour. And so I did a run. Well, I did kind of retire from GDQ events, at least doing that category. So I did a solo run at GDQ, and I had a really good couch, like Darkwing and Jay Coper, and I think Jam Eveler were on the couch.
Oh, yeah, some good names.
Yeah, a lot of people who played, at least Link to the Past Randomizer for sure. But that has also done SMZ3. So, but they were on the couch. They did a great job. And, in the game, or in that run, my cart froze in level 1. And I'm like, what do I do? And they said, just start over. So I got to do the whole run again.
Which was level 1.
Yeah, well, it was, it's a third level.
I know, that's like, I mean, it's still early-ish,
right?
Yeah, the level, because you do 3 and then 4 and then 1, because the way around.
The scariest part of the run is actually level 3 and 4. So I got to do the hardest part of the game twice, at least in a marathon setting. But yeah, I did that. That was really fun. And then I think like the next year at an SGDQ event, I did a low percent race, First Quest, with BT and Unos. And that, so that's 3 hearts, wooden sword all the way through, like no potions, no rings, nothing. And I was able to win that race too. So nice. I have had a lot of success with Zelda 1 at GDQ. So I'm like really, really okay with never playing it again in front of people.
Yeah, I mean, the low percent run is really interesting, because you have to do the level 1 fight, the Aquamantis fight, a little bit differently, because that heart container is right in your way. So.
Yeah, you got to get creative and luckily you can get through the door and like get behind the heart. I guess if you couldn't do that, you would just have to pick that heart up.
There's you'd be a 4-heart run instead of a 3-heart run. But still, I think it's cool that there is a way around it, and you can do the 3-heart run. Even though that puts you, it doesn't quite put you in 1-hit KO, except for a few things.
It's very close.
Like Ganon.
Yeah, it's very close.
And Red Rose Robes, but yeah, that sounds like a I mean, a lot of people really enjoy the low percent stuff, and it's really fun to watch that sort of thing. And you said was there other games that you ran at GDQ? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I've run a number of games. So I did Zelda 1. I've also run Super Mario Brothers twice.
Okay.
I did an any percent race with Darbian and Green Death Flavor, GDF. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I did not win that race. We'll say that. I actually didn't finish. I game over it and was like, let's just keep moving on. Mm-hmm, I got to 8-4 or something and just game over. And then I was part of like the Super Mario Brothers. I think this was called like the 2D Relay or the classic Mario Brothers 2D Relay. And so there were 3 teams of 4 players each.
Okay.
And I played Super Mario Brothers. It was warpless. And so we started off in Mario 1. And so I started our run and I got a 1946 or something, which is was 20 seconds off my PB. Mm-hmm. And so that was like a really fun moment because it was a really it was just a really energetic crowd. There was like commentary, Author Blues and Skybills did commentary, and we had to like rotate in our seats. And I got my run out of the way, and I was like super happy to be done because of the pressure that was mounting, just getting up there in front of people for like a big race like that. Like I had no problem like doing a run. Like you get some butterflies, but I got more comfortable as time went on. My other like really big run. Well, let me talk about the other runs. So I did Big Nose the Caveman, which is like one of my childhood games that I played. That's an unlicensed title from Comerica. They made like Micro Machines, some other games. That was super fun. I was happy to do that. That was at like 3:30 in the morning. So I stopped submitting games like that because I just wanted sleep.
Yeah. Because it is 24/7. You know, there are.
yeah. So you don't know when you're getting put into the marathon. I
mean, Z1 is probably not getting put at 3:30 in the morning, but other games, yeah.
Correct. It is not. Other runs I've done was I did Doki Doki Panic, which is the Mario 2, the original Mario 2. That was cool. That was a solo run. I did all levels, had Cool Kid and Cosmic on the couch. That was a really fun run. And then I did a co-op playthrough of Super Mario World One Mind with Author Blues.
Okay.
And so that ROM, it's this vanilla game, but the game randomly assigns control of Mario to one of the 2 players, and it shuffles. So it just goes back and forth
neat.
At random intervals, and it gives you a little lead in. So you kind of speed run the game together, right?
Okay. Oh, that's really neat.
So we actually met the donation incentive to do hard mode, which makes it switch I'm thinking it's 1 second. It's every 60 frames. It switches control.
Oh, dear God.
Between, it might even be 30 frames. It's been so long, but definitely go watch that. That was a really fun run. Probably the most like fun event I've done. And that was the last one I did. And that was at GDQ 2020.
Okay.
And then probably the biggest one that I did was, Mario RPG, and I did that at SGDQ 16, and that was like the finale of the marathon.
Oh, neat!
So that was really fun. I'd also that was like my other big game. So Zelda 1, and then on the side, I also got the world record in Super Mario RPG. So I got to speedrun that too.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that because that also came out on the same day as Grand Poo World 3. And I remember you playing that first, the new version, the Switch version, which really looks like they did a good job. Now, I haven't played it because I literally just beat the game for the first time over the summer.
Oh, good job!
Because I had bought the cart like a month before they announced the remake. Otherwise, I probably would have just waited for the remake. But I spent a lot of money, so I did it. So I'll wait on buying that, but it was really fun it did allow me to watch other people play it because, what spoilers? I mean, there's like little things that are different. But,
sure. It's little stuff.
So you want is the plan to speedrun that as well, I believe?
Yeah, I've done a couple speed runs, just kind of slow runs playing with the timer, following the route. So yeah, I actually was involved in like the routing of the new speed run, which
Cool.
I hadn't done before. Like I've never been really part of a brand new game and kind of defining the speed run. And like I'm part of the admin team with Mario RPG. I was for SNES, and like we kind of just kind of helped guide the new one as well. And I didn't do a lot, but I was able to contribute something, and it did stick in the route. So that's pretty cool. But right now, Void has the world record. It's like 2:37 without the credits timing. That was a big deal, like timing the credits. That's what we do in the SNES version. We don't do that in the Switch version. So the Super Nintendo version is currently still faster, start to finish. But I am looking forward to speedrunning the Switch version.
So what timing the credits? Is there something about the credits that, because typically a speedrun ends when you lose control of the character? What's different in the SNES version of Super Mario RPG that you add the credits into the timing?
That's a great question. Basically, the Japanese community was really the one that kind of popularized SMRPG speedrunning.
Okay.
And the Japanese version is used because it saves time on the text.
Right. That's pretty common.
In JRTA, a lot of times, like Japanese real-time attack, you would time from power on to the credits, at least in RPGs.
Okay.
And that's what was used. And so we just kept that. We thought that was important to the tradition of the run. After a 3-hour run, you're probably watching the credits anyway. You're not just going to reset after killing the boss and say, all right, let's go again. Not like a shorter game. So the credits are lengthy. It's like 11 minutes plus to watch the whole credit sequence, but that is included in the timing. So we decided for the new one, it's a brand new game. Let's just not include the credits timing. I'm still, in my splits, I actually still have a split for the end because I don't like the change, even though I put my rubber stamp on it. But I'm like, I'm still doing it, but I'll submit the actual time when I do.
Awesome. All right. But yeah, back to some, we'll talk Z1R because we had Fred on last week, and he talked about how you were kind of instrumental to giving him the idea to creating that randomizer.
That's true. So you could basically thank me for Zelda randomizers, like in general. because I was streaming and Fred was in chat, and I said, you know what the best part about this game is like playing it for the first time. And I said, what if like, you turn the game on and things are in different places and like you had to go find the levels and you had to go find the items, and the items could be in different dungeons. And he said, hold on, let me see what I can do. And then from that, the randomizer was born. And it was, I remember where I was when I saw it for the first time, and he's showcasing it. And I just like couldn't believe what I was watching. It was like the birth of a brand new like era of video games, of being able to play a game and it's brand new for the first time, or it's brand new to you. And there were seemingly infinite number of possibilities. Zelda 1 is a little less, but it's not there's not as many things as in something like Link to the Past.
Right.
But it's still got enough to where you could get a pretty unique experience, and it has just grown. So I came up with the idea. I've done like zero work. So let me be clear that I did some testing early on, some like beta testing of new features and stuff.
You've played it. You've done a couple of tournaments or so. I don't know how many. I know you were in the spring 2022 tournament. So I don't know how many you've done total, but
I joined a couple tournaments. Yeah, I did a lot of racing. Like that, when it came out, like we raced it all the time. Like it was, I didn't have a wife and kids back then, so I was much more free to kind of do with my free time what I wanted to, or what I had time to do. So we would do like 2-3 races in a row, and we'd be on calls, and it was just a really fun time. To the infant stages of Z1R was really cool.
And of course, since we're talking about tournaments, and this is an ALTTPR podcast, we should at least talk about your ALTTP and ALTTPR experience.
They've been talking about it for years. Let me tell you, I have a little experience. So, like in Z3, just in Z3R tournaments, Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about those in particular. And I know and of course, you've done some SMZ3 as well, but let's start with your ALTTPR experiences.
Yeah. As far as I remember, I've entered 2 tournaments. I've done, like, I played it early on. Like, I think I played like a seed or a couple seeds or something. And then I said, I'll play in the speed gaming tournament. And I did qualify for the tournament. And yeah, before we started recording, I mentioned that one of my races, my claim to fame is that I actually finished second in a qualifier of like 80 runners. And so I think I beat everybody. Maybe it wasn't Ari. I mentioned Arior in the first or beforehand, but I think it might have been Wayne.
That's also a good name. Those are both really good names.
he was the guy who beat me, but I had beaten Andy by like 10 seconds. It was very close. And I apparently, like, every single gamble that I had made paid off. And I just like went straight to the...
I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah, it was very rare. Right? Sometimes you just get beginner's luck. So I just capitalized. And I didn't make it that far, but I think I won like maybe a match. And then I didn't go very far after that. So I have some experience, but yeah, most of mine is in as part of the combo.
I do remember you were in the 2019 tournament. I don't know if that was the one you had the good qualifier score for, but I think that's the last time I remember you being in one of those tournaments. I mean, it's tough to get into ALTTPR tournaments now. Like the talent has gotten so good.
Yeah, there's people that play it like that's all they play. They play, seed a day or whatever. And I'm like, this is just a side thing that I'm just doing for fun. And I'm like, yeah, I've played it before. I'll just rely on my like natural skill of speed running the game and that's it. But I do struggle against the veterans because they just have that experience. So
now, do you have any speedrun experience with Link to the Past?
I do. As part of a goal I had, I got a sub 90 Link to the Past. So it's like 129.57. I was like the highest.
That's sub 90.
I was the highest 129 on the board at the time. So that was pretty fun. I was like, of all the sub 90s, I am the worst one, but I did do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's important, there's a lot of people that haven't done sub 90. So,
yeah, I would like to go back to that. It's just a long run and it's just hard that run is very practice oriented. Like you have to drill rooms to get better, to get those frames. Like if you lose 1 second in every room, that's like, isn't it like 5 minutes or it's like 6 minutes or something?
Yeah,
of time or 8 minutes. It's a lot of time that you lose over like optimal. So the like Zelda 1, there's no dashing. So it's so you don't have you have a lot of automatic.
So what I'm hearing is you hate the boots.
No, it's just hard to optimize. It's hard to optimize the boots, right?
You can lose frames.
In Zelda 1, you're just like, okay, I'm going to hold up in this room. Like there's a lot of free rooms. In Zelda and Z3, there's no free rooms because you can pump, you can do stuff in the doorway. There's just a lot of optimization. So it's a very like high skill ceiling run.
Yeah, I do remember there was because I think more recently you've done a lot of the SMZ3 terms. I do remember I was calling a race. You were playing Maniacal. This was, I want to say, spring 2020. And really interesting that what had happened was, I guess you guys had a tornado warning or watch or something.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that race, but now that you mentioned the tornado, I do remember.
I mean, I just remember that we Maniacal, the gentleman that he is, said, no, man, I'll pause. We'll wait. You go take your frame. I think you had just one kid at the time, but it's very young child. Go hide out, do your thing, and come back, and we'll start up again. That was
a scary night. The tornado did actually touch down a few miles away from us, and it did a lot of damage. So we were fortunate not to be caught up in the wreckage. But yes, hats off to Maniacal for being really gracious about that.
Yeah, and and it's correct. With the 10-minute delay, and I think we were still on SRL at the time. So yeah, so it was definitely an interesting night. Those of us, I was calling the race, and we had to pause and put everything on hold and, worry about, just your welfare in general, because that's the most important thing, of course.
Yeah, sure.
So that was definitely an interesting moment. So something I don't recommend
Yes.
to anyone is to have tornado warnings while you're racing. I've had that. I had what happened to me during a ladder race once, but you look out the window and you don't see anything going on. You realize that it's up north, and my husband's down working in the basement. It's like, he'll come up and get me if it gets that bad.
Yeah, for sure.
But never to the point of what you're talking about, where I actually had to stop and, you could see that bad stuff was going on. All right. So back to NES games. The Big 20. You've been involved with that for a while. You won it last summer, correct?
I did. Yeah. The last Big 20 that we had, I was able to win that one. It was my first win.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you that don't know, the Big 20, actually, I'll let you explain the Big 20 because I believe you are one of the admins for it now, I think?
I am. Yeah. I actually I joined the staff before Big 20 number 15, which was in the fall of last year, 22.
Okay.
And so the Big 20 is a race that has been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. Staff picks 20 NES games, different games, and then comes up with a goal, like an ending goal in each game. And the list of the goals is announced about 4 to 6 weeks prior to the race. And then people practice the race, all of the goals individually, all together. There's a lot of strat sharing, and then it all culminates in this race that happens on one day, and then everyone joins that wants to be a part of it. And then we race the goals back to back, and then the person to finish all 20 goals in order that they're assigned is the winner.
Mm-hmm. And like this one was kind of set up for you a little bit. I mean, not on purpose, but Z1 was the last goal. And it was a special ROM where you had a certain number of hearts and you just had to go beat Ganon, correct?
Yeah. So we had the Zelda one has been in the Big 20, I think 3 times prior to this one. Mm-hmm. And so we had like get the magical sword. We had that. We had mm-hmm. like beat level 5. We had mm-hmm. get second quest, get 4 Triforces. Mm-hmm. And so we have some new staff members who have some ROM hacking like experience and abilities. And so we decided that, hey, we've never had the end game in for Zelda 1 because it's a long run. Like you can't, for someone to do the whole game would be such an advantage for someone who has been speedrunning it for 10 years like myself. But if it was just a portion of the game and we gave you some safeties, then it's not as big of an advantage.
Right.
So we decided that, the first 2/3 of the game is like collecting 6 of the 8 Triforce pieces and then getting the magical sword and then doing the rest of it. So we decided to give you what you needed at that point, like give you what you had at that point in the speed run and then do the rest of the speed run from that point. And mm-hmm. so with ROM hacking, we were able to get that done. Mm-hmm. So that was a really cool thing. But yes, it was the final game, and just everybody's going to say, "Oh, you just kind of set it up for yourself." Well, this Big 20 was a viewer voted in Big 20. So we sent out a form. You could vote any 20 Nintendo games that you wanted to. Okay. And the top 20 voted got in.
Okay.
And then we ordered it based on the number of votes. So Zelda 1 had the most votes.
So it ended up being last. Okay.
And it ended up being last. Yes.
I mean, that worked out well for you. I mean, to be fair, I mean, if it had been at the beginning, then you get a lead, right? And there's no guarantee that by itself being at the end was the difference in the race. But it's just, I remember when you were practicing, like all the games that like I think Super Mario Brothers 3 was in there towards the end, mm-hmm. Maybe Super Mario 2, a few of those other games that you so like the end was like the spot where you were going to be able to shine. Whereas the beginning, I remember you complaining about Tetris a lot.
Tetris was a tough one. Like I played Tetris almost my whole life. Like I had it on Game Boy as a kid. Like I've been play it now and then. Mm-hmm. I'm not that great at it, but I'm like pretty decent. I'm a good casual player. I'm not like a hyper tapping level 29 player, maxed out player. But I kept like the mode we were playing was B type, where you put some garbage on the screen and then you have to get 25 lines and you can move to the next one. And all my practice runs, I just kept dying. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, it shouldn't be this hard. But people were having problems with it. And on race day, I took it very slow, but I did not die. So I'm like, thank you. I don't care. I just don't want to top out. But it ended up being enough in the end. But yeah, Tetris, I spent like no time on Zelda. I was like, okay, do I understand the route? Okay, I'm good. Like I could practice it a ton and still have a bad run on race day, or not practice it and have a good run. Like it was, I just decided to put my efforts elsewhere and rely on my experience for Z1.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience other than just watching the Big 20, but I feel like the first time I watched a Big 20 event, a couple of my friends had decided to join it this was summer 2019. There wasn't a single game on the list that I'd heard of.
Was that the Famicom list, or was that like just a regular? Okay, so yeah, we try to get, as a staff, like the next Big 20 is coming up in the race will be in March, but we'll probably announce in February. And so the next Big 20 is going to have 20 games that have not been in. And so like, neat. Yeah, so and that's what we did with the last one. That's what we did with the last one that staff picked. The staff will pick 20 games and they're not voted in. They're just, we select them. And then we select the goals too. Yeah. And
I do think it's cool to show off games that people hadn't seen before. And I think that's really cool. And then, but more recently feels like more games that I do know. And it sounds like now you're trying, is there some sort of balance going on to try and, make sure you hit the games that are popular, but also show off some new games? Because it is fun to see some of the games that, I mean, there's like, 700 Nintendo games or something.
Yes. That's something we do try to balance as a staff, at least in the short time that I've been on it. Because you don't want to do a ton of obscure games, because then people won't play.
Right.
Like people join because, oh, that's my game. That's a game I played a lot. I will join. But you have to do enough of those to get people to join. And because if you go in with 20 brand new games you've never played, that's a daunting task to learn that much. You could do it a full-time job. I mean, I probably put in over 5 weeks. I think I'll guess 200 to 300 hours of practice for the race. And, people do different things. Some people might just show up on race day and play. Some people might do, like, I think SBD Wolf, another runner, I think he practiced every single day of practice for like 6 or 7 hours at least. And it was, the amount of practice time he put in was staggering. So that's a
full-time job. Like,
it is. And you're not getting paid for this. Like, this is just all hobby. So, it's whatever you generate on your stream. But yeah, so we try to we want like the top players to play. We want the middle players to play, and we want new people to play, or people who aren't going to finish on, the fastest. So we have to find that balance of like too hard, too long, too short, too long, all this stuff. And it's tough. We talk about it for a month, and it takes that entire month to come up with a good list. Yeah,
absolutely. And that kind of leads me into one of your projects long term, Mission NES.
Yes.
Trying to speedrun every Nintendo game. Do I have that right?
Yeah, unfortunately you do. So I just decided, I knew I'm like, I'd speedrun a lot of different games. I kind of want to track it a little bit. And so I just said, like, my disclaimer is I'm just tracking my progress. I'm not committing to doing it, because it took TMR, who streamed every day, full-time stream. It took him like over 2 years to beat every single game. And so I'm just looking to speedrun it. So that can mean a bunch of different things. That can mean beating the game. That can mean doing like a side category, a shorter version of the game. It doesn't matter. Like, it's up to me really what I want to do. If the game is good, I'll do the whole game. If it's like whatever, I don't really care. I don't like the game, I'll just do a shorter version. Some I'll play blind and like won't look anything up. Some I will literally look at like a speedrun walkthrough to learn how to play. So far I've, as part of Mission NES, like since I came up with the idea, I've done 88 games and like completed that many.
Okay. You have a long way to go.
I have a long way to go. To my name, I have done a speedrun of 179 different NES games.
Okay.
So I'm not, so like when I get to those, like I've speedrun like Super Mario 3, I've done a speedrun of, but I haven't done it for this project.
Okay.
So I will just do one speedrun and it's like, okay, that's a check, right? Like I can just check that off. So it's not like get a really good time in every single game because I'd be like in my 80s before that happens. So, but a cool stat of the list that I've done. Let me verify this. Hold on, looking up stats while we're doing the podcast. You know,
it's okay.
That's not what I like to do. Let me count these here. So, as a result of Mission NES, I have achieved a world record in 23 different NES games.
Nice.
How
many of those games are you the only speedrun there?
Now, just
I have to ask.
Actually, just one.
Oh, okay,
I was the only runner. I did a couple of like first. There were a lot of boards that I had to start, and so I was the first one. But honestly, I think that only applies to one of them, and that's the one that I mentioned. Every other one, I either set a record and then I beat someone who's beat my record. So like I've set a new one. It wasn't just the first one.
Okay.
And then the other ones that were existing boards and I beat a time that was there. So some of them, and then I'd also gotten world records in 6 more games that weren't part of Mission NES. So I got a pretty nice, nice resume there.
I mean, if we're talking like all-time speedrunners, you're, just again looking at your profile. There's a lot of really good stuff there. So, any of those Mission NES games, have any of those become ones that you might decide to put more time into in the future?
Let me look here. I have, so I've got a bunch, and like while I'm looking, like part of the cool thing about it is I've been using like subscriber incentives so you can select a game. And so it gets put to the top of the list. So I've had people pick like really rough games. But I've also had people pick like games that I'd never played that ended up being super fun. And so I did like end up putting more time into something like Mickey Mousecapade was one of them that I'd played, but had never speedrun really. And I ended up getting 4th place in one day on a pretty popular game. It was like 30 plus runners. So that was a cool game. A game that I'd never played was the Guardian Legend.
Okay.
And I'd played that. Yeah, the Guardian Legend. And it's a long run. Like it's a 50-minute world record. But it's like a Zelda game crossed with like a shoot 'em up game. And like you turn into a shoot 'em up. So like there's games like that where I'm like, yes, these are fun games. Like I can't believe I missed this type of game. So there's a lot of stuff like Kirby's Adventure, Metroid. I've done all those. Pretty wide variety too.
Now, any games that you play that you never ever want to see again?
Wayne's World. That was an early one. It's if you played Wayne's World or like Rocky and Bullwinkle on NES, they're by that THQ company. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know.
They were capitalizing on a popular thing. I don't know.
They had interns or something like babies making games. Like it was just horrible controls, awful music. The graphics looked terrible. It was extremely difficult. So there are games that like just get me through. I'm finishing it. I'm getting last place on the board and I'm moving on.
I could see some of those. I mean, because the early NES days, there were some really good games, and then there were just some. I mean, for me, the game was Athena. I don't know if you've ever played that, but
not yet. It's on the list, but not yet.
I mean, yeah, because it's a NES game, but it was my friend had it, and it was one of the first games I got, and let's just say once I moved on from it, I moved on from it forever. So
yeah.
All right. Okay. So that's Mission NES, and of course, we're going into the Christmas time. You'll be doing your feats of strength.
Oh yeah, so that is from Seinfeld, the TV show that we were
going to get into Seinfeld.
Okay, I'll briefly mention it. So that feats of strength, it comes from the Festivus episode of Seinfeld. And Frank Costanza talks about like he didn't buy into all of the, hustle and bustle of Christmas, so he invented his own holiday. And so and like part of Festivus is the feats of strength where he and George wrestle, and it's whatever. So I kind of took that and then created a stream kind of event series of streams that I just create challenges or play like really hard games and kind of play them back to back or over. Like last year I did a whole month. I think the year before I did like a week or so. I think I'm probably going to do a week this year. And so I've done a bunch of different games, like games that I'd never really speedrun or even played. But yeah, it's super fun, and that's coming up like next week. So I'm looking forward to it.
Anything, any spoilers on what you're going to do, or is that going to come later?
I haven't released the list, but I'll give you a little teaser. So I am going to, like last year I did Battle Kid 1. For the NES, and I think I'm going to do Battle Kid 2 this year.
Okay.
I do want to do a speed run of Grand Poo World 3, the game I just played. Usually I pick a new Kaizo hack to play. So like another big one I haven't done yet is Super Dram World 2. Okay. I'm also going to do Ghosts and Goblins for the NES. That's part of Mission NES. So I kind of picked that. I have like a secret list here that I can refer to. Where's the other one? I might do like low level Super Mario RPG, which is not leveling up throughout the whole game. And that's just it's just hard to do. It takes a long time. It's not that it's very difficult, but it is.
How do you not level up?
So at the beginning of the game you have to, because there's no like item to lose your experience, but eventually you get this item where you can use it, and then it brings up this mini game where you can gamble your experience, right? And then there's a 1 out of 3 chance that you lose it, and then you get 0. So you can do that, and then through different equips and spells you can actually beat the final boss without taking any level ups throughout the game, right? So and it's pretty cool.
I think it was figured out that in the original game, when you got that choice, it was random which one was the one that lets you gain, and the other, but now you can follow it and you can see which one's the one that gains experience, and the other two are randomly which one's the 0, which one's the lose.
Tie, right? Yeah. So there's a win, which is ×2. There's a tie, which is you just get the 1x experience, and then there's lose, which means you lose it all. And so on the SNES version, it looks like you can follow it, like because it's just a shell game, like where it rearranges the shells. It looks like you can follow it, but it is completely random. Like the animation has no bearing on it. In the remake, you can follow the correct one because they show you that one. And so they pop up the correct one. It spins around. So then you only have 2 to choose from. So it lowers the percentage to like get through the game drastically, like, by a factor of 1. So, but it's like, it goes from 1 out of 3 to 1 out of 2, or 1 out of 6 to 1 out of 4. So
now, is there a certain threshold where if you accidentally go above it, the run just ends?
So you save before every fight. Okay. And if you get the experience, you have to reset.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
that's pretty wild.
It is. That's just kind of the challenge, and that exists in a lot of different games, where especially RPGs, like just challenge low level runs or different experience equipment runs, or no fighting or no magic and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. There's a lot of low percent runs are a general thing, and of course, like there's one of the extreme ones I know of is the ALTTP one, where you have to do some shenanigans to delete the heart containers. So,
yeah, I have not tried that one, but that's tough, because at the end of the game, like you get hit once and you're dead. So
yeah, yep. Okay. So you mentioned Seinfeld. It's a great influence on your your channel is the bakery and Seinfeld. Your emotes reflect that sort of thing, and your sub badges seem to go back. So pick one to talk about. We'll talk about both, but I don't know which one you want to go to first. But
yeah, I could just briefly mention why it's called the bakery. So like when I first started speedrunning, we get a PB in a game, and one of my favorite snacks was peanut butter toast. So I always made peanut butter toast after like a milestone PB, and I would eat it on stream just as my meme, because PB toast.
Oh, nice.
Okay. And so that when I got partner, I'd everybody comes up with a name for their group of subs. So I had no name for a while. And then eventually I was like, why don't we just leverage the toast and bread? And so I became the bakery.
Okay.
And there's a logo. Chef Mario is my emote, like my main logo. And that is from Yoshi's Cookie on the NES. And so that's kind of just taken on a life of its own. And now there's a bunch of memes around it. So that's the bakery story. But yeah, let's talk about Seinfeld. Obviously the greatest sitcom of all time. Like it just hit at a moment, like in the 90s, like it just hit a really good pop culture.
Yep.
It just hit at the right time. It
still stands up today.
And it still is relatable today.
Yep.
And I can find a Seinfeld quote for almost any situation. There's a joke in there somewhere. I'm like, my family can't stand it. They're just like I'll say it's just some random off the wall thing. And they're like, that's Seinfeld, isn't it? I said, absolutely it is. So you're telling me your wife doesn't watch Seinfeld with you? Is that what you're saying? No, she does. She's not. I would say she's not a super fan like I am.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it's you get your Seinfeld trivia and do you how old are your kids now?
I have two daughters. They are 5 and 2.
Okay, and so 5, is that old enough to introduce to something like Seinfeld? Do you? I don't know. I don't have kids. I don't think there's anything that bad in that show, but it's kind of more adult.
It's not really
it's not really for kids.
I don't think she would. Yeah, she just wouldn't be entertained. It's just people on screen talking.
Sure,
she might like Kramer. I think she'd like Kramer the most because he does some funny things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that'll be for later.
Yes, much further down the line. I think that show would just bring about more questions than entertainment. So a lot of topics that 5-year-olds don't really relate to.
I mean, for me, I think about there was the episode where they're in the parking garage, and I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, they just forget where they park, and the Kramer's got an air conditioner.
And trying to find a spot in the first place. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Having had to drive to a college town and park every day for several years while in grad school. So yeah,
great episode. Purple 23 is where they parked. Just to write that one down when I ask it in chat someday. Purple 23.
Okay. Have you ever? Because you'll sometimes do trivia. Has anyone stumped you?
Oh, for sure. People try to show off, and they're like getting the most obscure possible thing, like what did George wear for this one scene in this episode, or something, or some actor or actress related question, which I'm not very good at, like what actor or actress said this line, or. But I'm really good. I have a really good hit ratio with getting questions right, and so it's been a fun thing to kind of challenge. Like I will ask questions of the chat, and they will also ask me questions.
All right. So talk about. I got to ask one other question about your kids. Sure. Do they play video games yet? Like 2 seems really young, but 5.
2 is young. 5 is when I got mine at First Nintendo.
Okay.
And so I have been trying to kind of coax my daughter into playing, and she likes playing. Her favorite thing to play is Mario Paint.
Okay.
She really likes using the mouse. She understands it. She shows me stuff she makes all the time. And that's a different style of gaming, but it's still on the Super Nintendo, which is cool.
I had that game.
I have exposed her to other games. Like she has gotten the sword in Zelda 1.
Nice.
She has beaten the first level in Super Mario Brothers.
Nice.
She recently played Kirby Superstar and was able to beat Wispy Woods, which I was extremely impressed with because there's just a lot of buttons on the Super Nintendo. So she's much better at the NES because there's only 2 buttons, and I can explain it a little better. She also plays Duck Hunt, with the zapper. And she loves that. Yeah. So she plays that. And there's like another Wild Gunman game where you're a cowboy and you shoot other cowboys. And we're trying to hey, let's shoot animals or, go hunting or something. Let's try not to shoot other people at this age. So we try to limit that and, explain that this is just for fun. And, it just knocked him over kind of thing. But so she plays, she'll play that. She played Game Boy a lot. Like I give her the Switch sometimes and she'll play Mario Odyssey, and she's gotten a bunch of moons in Mario Odyssey. So that'll hold her attention for a while. I have a Switch for her, but we haven't given it to her yet. Just not there. Maybe her next birthday in August. We'll get there.
Because, you talk about the controller, the difference between a NES and a SNES controller. Well, then go to the Switch controller where there's even more buttons. I mean, even as an adult, I find it very daunting. I remember when I played Dread, just the number of different buttons you had to push to do things. It's just there's something missing from newer video games where you had to be creative and had to be able to use just the buttons. To me, I feel like the SNES was the one that I like. I mean, granted, that was kind of the one I grew up with. Well, the NES and the SNES, but the controller on the SNES having not too many buttons, but not so it didn't get too overwhelming. But you still could have a dedicated button to a bunch of different things.
Yeah,
the Switch kind of. Yeah, it goes a little far, but good luck with that. Does that mean your younger daughter also gets a Switch when she's old enough?
Sure, they'll probably have something new by then, honestly. But
yeah, that's a good point. But
I don't know. I honestly don't know how they improve on the Switch. Like you have a TV, like you're holding a TV, like you've got modular controllers. Yep. Like the graphics on NES, on Nintendo it's a little different than like PC or Xbox and. Like, I don't really mind it. I just want good gameplay. Like, Super Mario RPG looks beautiful.
It does.
Like,
and the sound. I love the... Yeah, my favorite part is the music. The music on modern stuff is so good. Like, I don't really want to go back and play some of the old Final Fantasy games, 4 and 6 in particular, but I might just for the music.
Have you played them at all?
Oh, yeah.
Final Fantasies?
Oh, yeah. Not on Switch, but, on like Final Fantasy 4, I've played every version up until the DS version, which
I see
changed things and changed things in a way that I didn't like. Then, so there's a lot of different versions of that. 6 only has one version, to my understanding.
Okay,
and I played that. But yeah, I haven't played them on the Switch yet. But I was watching Fear Agent, the regular host of this show, playing Final Fantasy 4 and. On the Switch, and the music just blew me away. I'm like, I don't care about the rest of this. I just need to play this for the music. And Six's music is even better, in my opinion. So I just may play it just for the music, right?
Yeah, I have not played 4, but I actually used to speedrun 6 a lot. So
and you should play 4.
4 it's on the list, the list that keeps growing, but it's one of the next RPGs that I will be playing for the first time. And I don't know anything. I think I know what the final boss is, who the final boss is, but I don't know really anything about the game. So stay tuned. That will be, we'll say 2024 is the year I'll finally play Final Fantasy 4.
Well, I'll try and catch that because that'll be a lot of fun to watch. All right. So I don't know if you've listened to any of the previous podcasts, but highly recommend them. But one of the themes of this podcast is tilt. So at the end, we always ask our guests, how do you deal with tilt? Now, for you, it might be a little bit different because it might be more of a speedrun tilt instead of a racing tilt because a lot of our guests do a lot of Link to the Past racing, of course. But what makes you tilted and how do you deal with it?
Well, I can speak. I mean, I've done a lot of racing over the years, and the key to racing is to not let your emotions get the best of you. But a lot of times when I'm looking for something and I can't, you can't find it, I will not look in the obvious place. I will be like, that item is like, what's a long item to get? Like, it's in Mimic Cave. Like, the ice rod is in Turtle Rock. I know it is. Like, it's got to be in there. And you waste all that time going up there, and you're like, it's stuck on this. You get this tunnel vision, and that's definitely something. Like, when I'm racing, is I will get tunnel vision and say, well, it's got to be here. Like, it's got to be the most illogical place for it to be, or the most out of the way place. And so that is something that I deal with when racing. When I'm speed running, like, I don't really get that mad. I have a family friendly channel. I have never sworn on stream to this day. And I do that on purpose because, one, I have kids, but two, a lot of people my age, they have young kids and they want to be able to watch. So I really try to have comedic blow ups. You know, I won't, drop a bunch of F-bombs, but I'll dadgum it or whatever. I'll say a lot of that. But when speedrunning, like dealing with frustration, especially in something like Zelda 1, where your run is hanging by a thread all the time.
Yep.
You just have to push past that. Like some days I can't. And some days I'm like, I've just got to move on. I got to go play something else. But some days it does really get to you. And you just, the great runners can put that aside and push through. So that's what I try to do. I do have tirades from that every now and then. I'll just go off for 20 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny because I call Fred's the cleanest channel that I watch. But apparently, you're just as clean. I just didn't quite notice. That's why
we team up for when we do co-op randomizers. Is because we can be clean together.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Because you are partners in SMZ3, so kind of neat. Right. Back-to-back weeks. We had Fred last week and you this week.
You had Fred last week. Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. All right, but I hugely appreciate you coming on today, Lack. I'll be watching you, and I hope everybody tunes into Lack's channel. A lot of really cool stuff going on there, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with LackAttack. This will be my last guest hosting appearance for the time being, but I know Fear Agent has a lot of things planned for the new year, and I look forward to listening to future podcasts. Again, huge thanks to Fear for allowing me this opportunity, and I look forward to doing more in the future. And of course, huge thanks to all of you for listening and for the great feedback you've given me after the first 2 interviews. Happy holidays, everyone, and I'll see you next year.